Ted, how you feeling about the Cheetah spot with with all of the great reviews that Kendel Dolby got at the end of last season, and that he's getting, stuff that we're hearing about him throughout this offseason, the way he started spring practice? I'm starting to wonder, is he too good to where you just have to keep him on the field all the time and live with some of the bad situations you're going to be put in because he's not a big guy at 5'11", 182? Or is this Cheetah spot still, hey, you're going to probably have a true nickel guy in Dolby and then have more of a Sam Backer type guy in McCullough? Or let's not forget Harrington, even though coming off the knee injury, he's kind of the blend of both. So I'm so interested to see what happens at the Cheetah spot.
Yeah, I am too. I think it's going to be. Kendall Dolby has really been talked about a lot, and the matchup with him and Burks is iron sharpen iron through the spring. It sounds like so that's going to be fun to see how those two guys progress. But yeah, Kendall Dolby has been really praised from the staff about like where he went from the beginning of last year, whenever he's kind of thrown into the mix. Remember, they thought Harrington was going to be the guy, and he goes down pretty quickly in the season, and all of a sudden they're to a degree scrambling, and Kendall Dolby starts playing there and ends up having a really nice season. Well, he's not going to be starting from square one. Where he is today compared to where he was during the season isn't even close. And he's got great athleticism. You're right. The true nickel, kind of a corner playing that spot, covering those slot receivers, which really is what you want, that type of athleticism there. And he's a really good tackler. He's physical. So I kind of expect him. I expect him to be the guy until they get into bigger formations, and that's whenever Dasan McCullough is going to factor in. Now, he's not going to be in the spring, I don't think. So at least like he may be doing some like non-contact stuff, or I don't know exactly what his role is going to look like. And maybe they will bring him in as a full participant. I'm not sure, but he's got tremendous upside. Like we've seen when Dasan is out there and they do anything where he's moving forward, he is a tremendous threat in the run game, in any of the bubble and tunnel stuff on the outside. He basically eliminates that spot completely whenever he's coming forward. Really needs to work on his pass coverage and stuff, understanding the space behind him. He's got great length at 6'5" in that spot. If he made some pretty big gains in the passing game on the stuff going backwards behind him, I think he could be incredibly dangerous. Harrington, it's all about how healthy can he stay. He understands it. Um, he's incredibly physical. He comes downhill well. He plays with, it was my favorite thing about him as a player is the speed and effort he plays with at all times. He is a high energy guy that he plays that way the entire time. I hope he stays healthy. I think he's just a tremendous asset for the football team. He can be depth at safety. He can obviously be depth or even the starter at the Cheetah spot. I mean, in a pinch, he could probably play inside backer for you if you needed him to. They'll have that 6-pack where they've got 3 down and they have an extra defensive back out there when they're in their dime. He could be a part of that. When they do the 3 safety Iowa State stuff, he could play in that. I mean, there's a lot of things that he adds as a football player just to go along with the excellent personality, the excellent leadership that you get from him. I mean, I think we're in a really good spot at Cheetah. And add Omasigo in there, who played some Cheetah last year. It wouldn't shock me if Lewis Carter got a little bit of run there at the Cheetah spot because of his athleticism. So, I mean, it's another position that is deep. And as you look at it, now you wouldn't you don't feel great about Dasan being out there against, like a true 4 wide look, but it's kind of a position where you look at it and you say, I wouldn't feel horrible with any of those 3 guys as the starting Cheetah, which, you know, again, light years from where we were a year ago and 2 years ago. We had Deshaun White playing Cheetah. So, which nothing against him, it just wasn't his natural spot. Like, we've improved at this spot tremendously.
I think the biggest question right now is, and it's not like a a bunch of SEC offenses are getting into, consistently getting into 2 and 3 tight ends, and like that's really how they operate.
Probably more of that in the
But
Big 12 than the rest of the SEC.
right, but that is, I do wonder because Dolby's not an ideal fit for the Cheetah spot if a team decides, hey, we're gonna major in this against Oklahoma.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure, like, is McCullough the right guy for that as well? Like, does that maximize his strengths as a player? Because you look at it, he's long and frankly, he's a little. I just think he's a little light. He's listed at 222 pounds. When you're talking about a traditional Sam Backer coming into the core, you're thinking a guy that's high 230s, 240 pounds that can be really physical at the point of attack. I don't know if a bunch of SEC offenses go, hey, let's get in a couple of multiple tight end sets and just see how Oklahoma reacts. I don't know if pulling McCullough into the box and making him play a true Sam Backer spot. I don't know if that's his strength. Can he develop that? Can he add a little more weight and size and be more of a situational guy for those types of situations while Dolby and Harrington are probably the guys playing the bulk of your snaps with the type of personnel groupings you're going to see. I don't know, but I do wonder if they get some big personnel. Is McCullough the answer in those situations, or is Omasigo more of a true Sam Backer type of player? I don't know. I do think that's a question though.
No, it is a good point. With and I don't see the problem is you don't see a whole lot of it. Hopefully, we see a ton of it with our offense this spring. Have to get out there and see, like, to where you could really sharpen your skills. The problem is you just don't see a lot of it, so it's hard for any of those guys to get really good at it. So I Dasan at 6'5", 225, because of that length, should be hell on a tight end to block. But if he doesn't have the great technique there, he's also a tall, skinny target that if he doesn't have great technique, there's a lot of surface area for a blocker. So it's like either really good or the possibility of being really bad. So I'm with you. I'm curious to see how that goes. One thing to remember about Dasan McCullough is whenever he was at Indiana and transferred last year, he was like an inside guy that played on the edge too. And they plucked him out of that and put him out at Cheetah in space, fish out of water. And he made tremendous strides from spring ball until, whenever the season got rolling with how much ground he made up. Think about how far ahead of the game he is right now in spring compared to where he was last year. So it wouldn't shock me if, like, he makes some massive ground on all of those things, whether it's kind of playing that Sam spot against bigger personnel or being out in space. Like, he could be one of those players that makes a massive jump to where it's like, wow, who is this guy? He could be one of those.
No doubt. Now, the knee injury, I do think it's really unfortunate because I thought, from a strength and explosiveness standpoint, like he needed to work on his lower body.
Mm-hmm.
And the knee injury, it kind of limits how much progress you can make throughout winter workouts throughout the spring when you're rehabbing when you're rehabbing a knee. But yeah, I'm really interested to see where he fits because man, he had some moments last season where you go, dang, that guy just makes plays, but you're going to be playing, week in and week out, you're going to be playing a higher level of competition, a more physical, just bigger guys in the SEC. And how does he adjust to that? How does he handle it? So I, I love what we're hearing about Dolby though. And
Yeah, I know.
that's where it gets interesting. If Harrington really bounces back well and is flying around and with all of that energy, do they move Dolby somewhere else? Because I'd be shocked if he's not a starter somewhere with the way that they're talking about the guy. So that could create a interesting dynamic. Ultimately, you want to get your playmakers on the field as much as possible. So if Harrington really bounces back, I don't know what that means for Dolby or what it means for Harrington. Like, do they look at him in more of a traditional safety spot? I don't know, but that would be a good problem for them to run into.
No doubt. Well, here's the way I view it too. I if you're not a starter on defense, you need to be a big contributor on special teams. So let's just assume that let's just say it's Stutzman at Mike and Kobe McKenzie, or Stutzman at Will, Kobe McKenzie at Mike. That's your starters on defense. Or you could throw anyone in there next to Stutzman if you want. But Kip Lewis, Jaron Canick, Lewis Carter, Omasigo, Harrington, Dasan McCullough, like those are your core special teams guys. That's a hell of a core special teams group. Athletically, physically, like all of those guys can absolutely run. Like it should be a massive disappointment if Oklahoma's special teams, I'm not talking about the kicking and punting part or the catching and running. I'm talking about everything else. We should be hell on wheels on special teams. And you can't convince me of any other outcome other than that. Anything other than that is a massive disappointment. And that extends to like the guys, whoever's not going to be starting at safety. Like safety's going to be a hell of a competition at corner. I mean, we got corners that are 6'3", 220 pounds. Like we should be hell on wheels on special teams.
No doubt. Anything else? Inside backers, Cheetah. You didn't really break down those guys very well. So maybe
Well, I, I hope it comes across that I feel really good about this group. And it's one of the reasons I think that we will have the best defense that we've had at Oklahoma in as long as I can remember.
that makes me happy to hear you say that.
So don't expect too much out there, guys. No
Yeah.
pressure, right?
Yeah. No pressure.